Okay, so, Blake Lively. I need you to sit down for this one. Because if you think you already know everything about this situation, the lawsuit, the drama, the chaos, I promise you, you don't. Not even close. What most people have seen are the headlines, the tweets, the 30-second clips. But nobody has actually put the whole story together in one place and explained what actually happened, why it happened, and honestly, what it reveals about how Hollywood really works behind all that glamour. So that is exactly what we are doing today. The full story. From the beginning. And I need you to stay with me because this thing has more layers than an onion, and every single layer is messier than the last. Let's go. For anyone who somehow stumbled onto this video without knowing who Blake Lively is, first of all, welcome to the internet. I hope you enjoy your stay. Let me give you the quick version. Blake Lively is an actress, a businesswoman, and for a very long time, one of the most beloved celebrities in Hollywood. You probably know her from Gossip Girl, where she played Serena van der Woodsen, that gorgeous, effortlessly cool girl everyone wanted to be. And in a lot of ways, Blake Lively, the real person, seemed to be living a version of that same life. She married Ryan Reynolds, yes, the Deadpool guy, one of the most charming and well-liked men in Hollywood, and together they became that couple. The couple people pointed at and said, "See, that's how it's done." The perfect family, the witty social media presence, the million-dollar deals, they seemed completely untouchable. And that's actually important for you to understand going into this story, because the higher someone's pedestal is, the louder the noise when it starts to crack. And crack it did. Oh, it cracked. So let's go back to the summer of 2024. Blake Lively is starring in and co-producing a major film adaptation called It Ends With Us, based on the massively popular novel by Colleen Hoover. This was a huge deal. The book had an enormous fan base. People were genuinely excited. It was the kind of project that should have been a career-defining moment. The director of the film was Justin Baldoni. You're going to want to remember that name. Justin Baldoni is an actor and director who had built a reputation around advocacy, emotional storytelling, and, interestingly, being publicly vocal about feminism and mental health. On the surface, him and Blake Lively making a film about domestic abuse and female strength should have been a perfect match. It was not a perfect match. Here's what the public saw first. The promotional rollout for this movie was bizarre, and I don't mean that lightly. While the film dealt with incredibly heavy subject matter, abuse, trauma, survival, Blake Lively seemed to be promoting it like it was a fun summer rom-com. Cocktail references, bright outfits, playful social media posts. People were confused and honestly a little offended. The Colleen Hoover fan base, which is enormous and deeply passionate about these books, started pushing back hard. They felt the tone was wrong, that it was dismissive of the serious themes in the story. And criticism started spreading fast. Now, here's where one person in our little gossip circle would lean over and say, "Okay, but was that really that bad? Celebrities do weird promos all the time." And honestly, fair point. On its own, maybe that fades away in a few weeks. But this was just the beginning. Because behind the scenes, something very different was happening. In December 2024, Blake Lively filed a legal complaint against Justin Baldoni. And this wasn't a minor dispute about creative differences or money. This was serious. Blake Lively alleged that during the making of It Ends With Us, Justin Baldoni engaged in sexual harassment, and then, and this is the part that really exploded, she alleged that he coordinated a sophisticated, deliberate PR campaign specifically designed to damage her reputation after she raised those concerns. Let me say that again clearly, because it matters. She wasn't just claiming bad behavior on set. She was claiming that a coordinated effort was made, using PR professionals, media contacts, and a calculated strategy to make her look bad, to control the narrative, and to protect Justin Baldoni's image at her expense. Now, if that's true, and I want to be clear that these are allegations and this went through a legal process, but if true, that is not just Hollywood drama. That is genuinely disturbing. That is a person with power allegedly using that power to systematically destroy someone else's public image. The internet, predictably, went absolutely nuclear. But here's where the story gets complicated, because Justin Baldoni didn't stay silent. His team fired back, and they didn't fire back quietly. Justin Baldoni filed his own countersuit, and the number attached to it was not small. We're talking about a $250 million lawsuit filed against the New York Times, which had published an article that Baldoni's team claimed was one-sided and damaging. His legal team came out swinging. They released evidence. They released text messages, They released what they described as proof that the narrative being pushed against Justin Baldoni was itself a manufactured, coordinated attack. Baldoni's lawyer made a statement that spread everywhere. The argument was essentially this: BlakeLively and her team, which included Ryan Reynolds and allegedly Taylor Swift's publicist, had orchestrated a campaign to destroy Justin Baldoni's reputation first, preemptively, before he could defend himself. And this is the moment where the internet split completely in half. Because suddenly you had two very different stories sitting side by side. One side said BlakeLively was a victim of harassment who bravely spoke out and then got punished for it. The other side said BlakeLively was a powerful Hollywood insider who used her connections and resources to destroy a man who had tried to hold his own against her. Both sides had evidence. Both sides had receipts. And honestly, this is where I'll be real with you. Sorting truth from spin in a situation like this is genuinely difficult, because both parties had access to professional image management. Both had lawyers. Both had PR teams. And both had clear reasons to control the narrative. What we can say for certain is this: the situation was messier than almost anyone initially realized. Because of course this couldn't just stay between Blake and Justin. Of course not. That would be too simple. Ryan Reynolds got dragged into the legal filings. There were allegations that he had been involved in communications about strategy and messaging around the situation. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, sitting in legal documents about Hollywood reputation warfare. And then, because apparently this story decided it needed even more famous people involved, Taylor Swift's name started appearing. Specifically, her publicist. The allegation from Baldoni's side was that BlakeLively had access to and used connections within Taylor Swift's powerful inner circle to help shape media coverage. Now, Taylor Swift herself didn't get directly dragged into the courtroom, but the mere mention of her name in connection with this case sent an entirely new wave of discussion across the internet. Because Taylor Swift has one of the most passionate and protective fan bases on the planet. And suddenly, they were being asked to figure out what side to be on. One friend in our imaginary gossip circle would absolutely interrupt here and say, wait, so Taylor Swift's people might have been involved in a Hollywood reputation war in 2024? And the answer is, allegedly, possibly, in a peripheral way, yes. Allegedly. I told you this was messy. So after months of filings, counterclaims, leaked texts, competing press conferences, and enough legal documents to fill a small library, what actually happened? The case went through significant legal proceedings. There were rulings on what evidence could be used. There were motions, hearings, and moments where the judge made clear that the courtroom was not going to become a stage for competing PR narratives. At various points, both sides faced setbacks. What became increasingly clear through the legal process was that the situation on both sides involved strategic behavior that went well beyond what most people think of as a normal Hollywood dispute. The text messages that emerged, the planning conversations, the deliberate media placements, all of it painted a picture of an industry where image management is treated as seriously as any creative or business decision. And whether you believe BlakeLively's version, Justin Baldoni's version, or some complicated combination of both, that part was undeniable. This was not a spontaneous drama. This was managed on all sides, very deliberately. The public, watching all of this unfold, had to sit with a genuinely uncomfortable question. When powerful people fight each other this publicly and this aggressively, how do you ever actually know what's true? Here's what I find most fascinating about this entire situation, and I want to give you my honest take here. When this story first broke, public sympathy was overwhelmingly with BlakeLively. A woman claiming harassment and retaliation from a male director. In the post-Me Too era, that narrative had enormous cultural weight. People believed her. People defended her loudly. Her supporters were vocal and fierce. But then something shifted, slowly at first, then all at once. As more details emerged about the PR strategy, about the group chats, about the careful media positioning, people started getting uncomfortable. Not necessarily because they stopped believing harassment occurred, but because the response to it started looking as calculated and aggressive as the original behavior being complained about. And there's a real tension there that I think deserves to be named honestly. Because fighting back using every tool available to you and orchestrating a targeted takedown campaign, those can look very similar from the outside. And when you're a person with enormous resources, powerful connections, and access to professional reputation managers, the line between self-defense and offensive warfare gets very blurry, very fast. Public opinion didn't just split, it kept shifting. Week by week, new detail by new detail. One person online put it perfectly. I started following Blake, then switched to Baldoni, then decided I trust nobody. And honestly, that might be the most accurate summary of how a lot of people ended up feeling. Because here's the thing. On the surface, this is a celebrity drama. Two famous people in a very public, very expensive fight. And yes, it's messy. And yes, it's fascinating. And yes, we're all here for it. But underneath that, this story is really about something much bigger. It's about power in Hollywood and how it actually works. It's about the fact that image management, the deliberate, professional construction and destruction of public reputations, is not a side activity in this industry. It is the industry. It runs parallel to every creative decision, every casting choice, every project announcement. And what makes the BlakeLively and Justin Baldoni situation so revealing is that usually all of that stays hidden. Usually the machinery is invisible. You see the polished result, the charming interview, the perfect red carpet moment, the carefully timed announcement, but you don't see the text messages. You don't see the strategy sessions. You don't see the conversations about how to neutralize a threat before it becomes a headline. This case, messily and publicly, and against everyone's best efforts to control it, pulled back the curtain. And once you see how that machinery actually works, it changes how you watch every celebrity interaction going forward. That's actually kind of significant, in a weird, chaotic, lawsuit-filled way. So where does BlakeLively stand now? Honestly, and I say this having gone through every detail of this story, her reputation took real damage. Not because of one single moment, but because of the accumulation. The promo rollout, the lawsuit, the counter-lawsuit, the leaked strategies, the shifting public opinion, it all added up. Whether she fully recovers depends entirely on what she does next. And in Hollywood, next moves matter enormously. A great project at the right time can rewrite a narrative completely. A misstep can cement the worst version of the story permanently. Reynolds seems to have largely survived the association. His projects continue, his brands continue, and his reputation, while dinged, remains mostly intact. Justin Baldoni's path forward is arguably even more complicated, given the multiple legal fronts he's navigating. And Taylor Swift, who watched all of this from a careful distance, is probably very relieved her name didn't land in a more central spot in those filings. Probably. Now here's what I genuinely want to know from you. Because this story is one of those rare situations where I think the answer is actually not obvious. After hearing everything, the harassment claims, the PR counter-campaign, the strategic messaging, all of it, who do you think handled this situation the worst? Blake? Baldoni? Their teams? Hollywood as a whole? Drop it in the comments. I am going to read every single one. And if this video gets enough discussion, I will absolutely do a follow-up breaking down the comments section. Because honestly, your takes on this might be better than anything I just said. Subscribe if you're new here. We do this kind of deep dive every week, and I'll see you in the next one.